Thank you for joining us. My name is Evelise Burgos from the Ombudsman Office in Atlantic Cape County Superior Court. Meet the Court Live is a summer weekly series of webinars via Zoom to inform the public about a variety of court programs, services, and more. The presentation today will provide general information and feature a Q&A at the end. You may submit general and non-case specific questions at any point via the Q&A function in your Zoom app, and our speaker will address them at the end as long as time permits. This is a Zoom webinar, so your cameras and microphone will not be usable. Also, please note that this is a series product of Atlantic and Cape May County Superior Court of New Jersey, and some information may only be unique to this county. Please check with your own county for any information specific to them. Today's presentation will cover child support enforcement and will be presented by subject matter expert Dawn Doherty and Maisha Martin. We hope you enjoy today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelise, and welcome everybody. I am Dawn Doherty. I'm the Assistant Probation Manager for Atlantic County, and I hope everybody's excited to learn about the inner workings of child support enforcement. So what happens after you have a child support order? The first thing is the case will be assigned to an intake worker, and that intake worker is going to look over your case to make sure that it is correctly set up in our computer system, which is referred to as NJ Kids. They're going to look over all of the financial information to make sure that it's loaded correctly. The obligation is correct, the arrears are correct, and the arrears payback is correct. After that, they're going to ensure that all the demographic information is correct to ensure accuracy. And most importantly, that the 4D application, which is the application that opens your case up to enforcement in probation, is accounted for and properly loaded onto the system. In addition, that the $6 fee, if it's applicable to the case, is also there. After that, we're going to try to do phone interviews or in-person interviews, depending on if the parties are present, to advise the parties their case is active, and to advise them how to pay, how to receive, and the inner workings of the child support program. Once all of that is completed, the case will be reassigned to a permanent enforcement worker, which will be considered your caseworker for the case. Maisha?
All right, so once establishment is done, there are ways to either receive or ways to pay your child support payments. In regards to receiving child support payments, you can receive them by either direct deposit to a checking or savings account, a New Jersey debit card, prior to these two options being active, checks will be sent to the address that we do have on file for the custodial parent. As far as payments, we do have income withholding that we do send to the employer to garnish the wages. You can make cash payments at the courthouse with finance. You can send the form of a check to the payment center. Or we also have the Pay Near Me, or what we can say is a money order from like CVS, Family Dollar, Walmart, and other various places that are close to us. And last but not least, Expert Pay and other third-party companies that we do have, you can make payments electronically for a small fee. Dawn?
So, who monitors your case? And more importantly, how do you communicate with them? The first thing that I would recommend when your child support case becomes active is to go to our website, which is njchildsupport.org, and look at the plethora of information that is on that site. We have an 877 phone number, NJ Kids 1, which you can use to leave a message and request callbacks from your worker or to obtain information about your case. In addition, I'm going to highly encourage that you download the child support app to your phone. That is a very easy way to get quick details on your child support case. Once your child support case is active, you will begin to receive mail and you will get a customer number and a PIN, which will allow you to activate both the portal on the website and the app. So who is your caseworker? Your caseworker is going to be either a probation officer or an investigator, and they are going to utilize the New Jersey Kids Child Support Computer System to monitor and, if appropriate, enforce your court order. These workers have no ability to modify or change anything on your court order. New Jersey is a judicial state, which means that we need a court order to do any changes to a court order. The caseworkers here in Atlantic County can monitor anywhere between 700 and 900 cases. So they do have to rely on the computer system to let them know when it's appropriate to look at your case and enforce your case. In addition, you can call the 877 number and request a callback from your worker, or just request enforcement of your case, and the worker at the 877 number will get that message to your caseworker. New Jersey child support caseworkers do not receive calls directly. There are other officers in the court in the child support program that monitor specialized cases. These would include interstate cases, which tend to be a lot more complex when dealing with the other state's jurisdiction. And there's also judgment coordinators, and there's court team workers and bench warrant team workers. So not necessarily everybody monitors the same type of caseload. In addition to the local agency, at the state level, we have the Administrative Office of the Courts and the Division of Family Development. These are all workers that are part of the program at the state level that will also have involvement in your case. And as we go through the slides, you'll see where they come in and out and play a role in your case. Maisha?
All right, so
Next slide.
Oh, sorry. Is this the correct one? Okay, sorry guys. How are child support cases enforced? So there are enforcement methods for both local enforcement and at the state and federal level.
Next slide.
Next slide, please. So as far as local enforcement remedies, which is my area of expertise as being an investigator, there are various remedies that are a part of the program. So they include income withholding, which I did mention earlier as far as payment options for child support. You do have enforcement hearings, which can be scheduled by us in front of a hearing officer, and in certain cases in front of a judge. There are bench warrants, which if you fall under the criteria of obtaining one, also as well as if you fail to appear for your enforcement hearing, that can give you the option to be awarded a bench warrant. And we do have license suspension, which is a very rare occurrence as far as enforcement remedies. But to have the license suspension go through, it does have to be in the form of a hearing. You have judgments, which each case has a judgment number throughout the entire life of the case, and then also after the case ends. You have quadros, which are to garnish the pensions or retirement funds that are given to the non-custodial parents. You have willful non-support charges, which are criminal charges for your non-custodial parents who just are not willing to pay, or they're willfully not paying. And then you have Project Save Our Children, which kind of ties into the willful non-support charge, which are federal charges for evading child support. Dawn?
In addition to the local remedies, we also have some state and federal remedies that we don't necessarily control out of the local county office, but that are worked by the Division of Family Development and the Administrative Office of the Courts up in Trenton. So a couple of the programs are federal and state tax seizures. You can qualify, your case can qualify for a tax seizure if you owe more than $500 on your case. Very similar to that is the administrative tax offsets, which are some federal payments that are made to vendors and to reimburse some federal workers for travel. They're rare, but they can be offset. We also have the Child Support Lien Network, which is a national database that was set up for the purpose of intercepting insurance settlements and awards for things like personal injury and workers' compensation claims. We can also intercept lottery and casino winnings. So to begin with, the lottery or casino winning has to be at least $600. And the case has to have at least 1 month or greater worth of arrears. So then we're going to move on to bank account seizures, which is also referred to as FIDM, which stands for Financial Institute Data Match. In those cases, you have to have the monthly obligation and arrears not satisfied for at least 2 months in a row, and 45 days without payments has to have elapsed. In those situations, we can begin to look at bank accounts. We have a passport denial program. In that situation, if you are going for a passport for the first time, or you're trying to renew a passport and you owe more than $2,500 in arrears, your case will be flagged for a denial. And lastly is credit reporting. Credit reporting is by operational law, which means it occurs on all cases that have arrears greater than or equal to $1,000. It is revolving reporting to the credit agencies, which means that the balance, your arrears balance, is updated weekly with the credit reporting bureaus. Maisha?
So how and when does child support end? So child support can end through emancipation, or more so of the common term, termination. So with emancipation, it is pretty much the legal way for a child to separate from the home, from their parents' home before the age of 19. So they can request for emancipation through, well, it was automatic through marriage, full-time military, or if the dependent is deceased. As far as independently living, they would have to file to go to court to separate themselves from their parents before the age of 19. Now with termination, New Jersey's age of termination of support is 19, but continuation can be requested or extended until the dependent's 23rd birthday. And they would either have to be a full-time student or they would have to have a disability. As far as the arrears would continue to be collected until paid in full. As if the child or the dependent is deemed to be permanently disabled, it is no longer child support, and it's more so termed as financial maintenance, which you see below, and it would go beyond the 23rd birthday or until the parties come to an agreement, which would be through court orders. Dawn?
So we're going to just speak briefly about judgments because they are a little bit complicated. Judgments on a child support order are, again, by operation of law, which means it happens on all child support cases that have at least 1 month of arrears, and it's at least 45 days from the start of the case. So it is about 99% of our cases here in Atlantic County. So an interface occurs between the child support computer and the clerk's judgment recording system in Trenton. And the complicated part of a judgment is that upon the order closing, regardless of the payment status, in other words, the case could be paid in full The judgment remains open in most cases. And that is because the probation department is not the payee on a judgment. The custodial parent is the owner of that judgment and controls that judgment. So when we close out 40 remedies, we're closing out the probation case. We don't have the right under the law to close the judgment. So we remove ourselves from the judgment, and the judgment remains until the parties handle the judgment through either the judgment being paid and a warrant of satisfaction being issued, or the parties going back to court and a judge ordering that the judgment be satisfied. There is, it's rare, but you can seek interest on child support arrears. In the state of New Jersey, we do not do that automatically. But upon the settlement of a judgment, that can come into play. And it is the right of the custodial parent to seek interest on any arrears that existed through the life of the case. Maisha? I'm sorry, that was actually mine. Sorry. So the big question is, what if I can't pay, right? So child support cases are established. Sometimes they run over 20 years. Circumstances change in people's lives, and sometimes the ability to pay is not there. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is communication and documentation. So staying in touch with your worker is so important. Keeping them advised of what efforts you're making in order to either pay the support or change the court order or ask for a relief from the courts from the obligation. In addition to just the communication, there's most likely going to be the request for documentation. If there's a prognosis or a diagnosis that's hindering these payments. And I always want to emphasize that a lot of people think if I owe $100 and I don't have $100, I can't pay anything. And that is definitely not the case. Any payments go a long way. A family in need would much rather have $20 than $0. In addition, if you can't afford the $100, then a judge or a hearing officer is most likely going to want to see what you can afford. And I'm sure that's not going to be $0. So we always emphasize making as much effort as you can to provide support to children. In addition to that, we do have a newer program, our jobs program. And what that program is to try to help connect non-custodial parents with employment opportunities, employment development programs, and training programs. We have many, many training programs that can be taken advantage of for free through the probation division. If you are seeking employment or you are underemployed and need additional employment, I highly encourage that you reach out to your worker to take advantage of some of these free opportunities. We have partnerships with the large employers in Atlantic County, including the casinos. We can take an application and streamline it through the HR process to get our non-custodial parents maybe not hired faster, but maybe just paid a little bit more attention to. And I do keep saying non-custodial parents. These programs are also open to custodial parents, anybody caring for children and trying to support children. If you have TANF arrears, which are also referred to as welfare arrears, we have programs where if you get a certification or you complete a training program, you can actually get credit on your TANF arrears, and you can start working down your TANF arrears just by completing certification programs. And probably the first step, if not through the communication documentation and the jobs program, we will advise that if you need a change in your court order due to a change in your circumstances, you will have to file a post modification application with the family division. to ask for whatever reliefs you deem necessary in front of the court. And that is our presentation. Next slide. There is a QR code here for the New Jersey Child Support Handbook, both in English and Spanish, if you need more information. And Evilise, are there any questions?
As of now, there's no questions. If any, I'll take another minute or so. If anybody has questions, you can enter them now into the chat. Doesn't look like any are coming in. I'll move to the next slide. If one pops up, I'll just go back to it. So thank you for watching today's presentation, and thank you to our subject matter experts and our Spanish interpreter. We would love to receive feedback on this program. Using the QR code on the screen, please take a moment to answer a brief survey about today's program. We will receive a link via email after the session ends, as well as flyer for the remaining webinar topics. If you are looking for more information on this series, please contact the Office of the Ombudsman at the email address shown above. As of now, still no answers coming in, so we'll just conclude today's presentation. Thank you to everybody, and I hope everyone has a good weekend.